I met Ryan Cole on a day that wasn't supposed to matter. Late October. Cold but not winter yet, the kind of weather where the air smells like leaves and distant fireplaces, and everything feels briefly honest. I had left school exhausted, carrying a bag full of essays I already knew I wouldn't finish grading that night. My life had become predictable in the quietest way possible: teach, drive home, microwave dinner, sleep. Then my car didn't start. I remember gripping the steering wheel and laughing, not because it was funny, but because it felt like the universe had run out of creative ways to disappoint me. A knock came on the window. I jumped. A man stood there, hands raised slightly like he didn't want to startle me. Dark jacket, wind-messy hair, and eyes that looked warmer than the rest of the day. "Battery?" he asked. I rolled the window halfway down. "My guess." He smiled, not charming, not rehearsed. Just simple. Human. "I've got cables." I should have said I'd call roadside assistance. I should have stayed cautious. Instead I popped the hood. We didn't talk much while he worked, but the silence didn't feel awkward. Just shared. The metal clicked, engines hummed, and after a moment my dashboard lights flickered alive again. I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for months. "You saved my entire week," I said. "Ryan," he replied, wiping his hands on a cloth. "And you owe me absolutely nothing except proof this car actually runs." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long while. Claire. The engine stayed alive. So did the moment. I don't know why I asked him if he wanted coffee. Maybe gratitude. Maybe loneliness. Maybe the quiet instinct that sometimes life opens a door only once. The diner nearby was nearly empty. Neon lights hummed softly above cracked vinyl booths. We sat across from each other, steam rising between us like we'd been placed in the scene deliberately. "What do you do, Claire?" he asked. "High school literature teacher. Professional overthinker." He nodded seriously. "I build custom furniture. Professional fixer of things that don't want to cooperate. Like my car." "Like most things," he said, then after a pause, softer, "except people." That line stayed with me. We talked for hours. About books we pretended to understand in college. About childhood homes we still dreamed about sometimes. About how adulthood felt like improvising competence while hoping no one noticed. There was no performance between us. No dating scripts. No carefully edited versions of ourselves. Just recognition. When we stepped outside, the sky had turned deep navy. My breath fogged between us. "Drive safe," he said. I didn't move. "Are you always this kind to strangers?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether honesty was dangerous. "No," he said quietly. "Just to people who feel familiar." My heart tightened in a way I couldn't explain. Days became evenings together. Evenings became habits. Habits became attachment. We shopped for groceries like it was an adventure. We argued about movie endings. We learned the exact pauses in each other's sentences. One night, sitting on the floor of my living room surrounded by takeout containers, I asked, "Why do I feel like I've known you longer than I have?" He leaned back against the couch, watching me instead of the TV. "Because," he said softly, "sometimes you meet the person your life has been making space for." The room felt suddenly smaller. Warmer. I rested my head on his shoulder. For the first time in years, the future didn't look like something I had to endure. It looked like somewhere I wanted to go. And that was the moment I fell in love, not loudly, not all at once, but with the quiet certainty that my life had just divided into before him and after him. It started with a story I couldn't finish telling. I was halfway through explaining to Ryan how one of my students had accidentally compared Shakespeare to a reality TV show when the sentence simply vanished. Not from my mouth, from my mind. The thought dissolved midair, like a word written on fogged glass. I stared at him, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. Ryan tilted his head. Claire. I forced a laugh. Wow. Total brain freeze. He smiled gently, but his eyes didn't. You okay? Just tired. I said it easily. Naturally. Like people do when they want concern to stop at the surface. But it kept happening. I'd open the fridge and forget why. Walk into a room and feel like I'd interrupted someone else's life. Sometimes, for a split second, the world felt distant, like I was watching it through a window instead of living inside it. The scariest part wasn't the forgetting. It was the delay before I realized I had forgotten. Weeks later, I was grading essays when I noticed the handwriting didn't make sense. Letters looked familiar but slow, like my brain needed extra time to translate something I'd read 1,000 times. The room tilted slightly. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, Ryan was kneeling beside me. Hey, stay with me. His hands hovered near my face, afraid to startle me. You weren't responding. I was right here, I whispered. You weren't, he said softly. That night he insisted on taking me to urgent care. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while we waited. He kept his hand around mine, firm, grounding, like he thought I might drift away if he loosened his grip. Probably stress, I told him. Teachers live in permanent exhaustion. Ryan didn't answer. The doctor ordered scans. Then more scans. Then blood tests. Each visit added new words I hated hearing: neurological, inflammatory, abnormal activity, uncertain cause. Temporary, one specialist said carefully. Possibly progressive, another added hours later. I watched Ryan absorb every syllable like they physically struck him. I began writing notes. At first they were practical reminders. Take medication. Lock door. Call MOM. Then they became personal. One morning Ryan found a yellow sticky note taped beside the bathroom mirror. You love Ryan. He didn't say anything for a long time. I could feel him standing behind me. Finally, his voice cracked. Why would you need to remind yourself? I stared at my reflection, searching for the woman who used to live comfortably inside it. Because sometimes, I admitted quietly, my feelings lagged behind my memories. He stepped closer. Do you still feel it now? I turned to him. God. I did. Completely. Overwhelmingly. But there had been moments, seconds at a time, where recognition came before emotion. Where my heart arrived late. That's what scares me, I whispered. His jaw tightened, fighting something breaking inside him. Then I'll keep showing up until your heart catches up. Every time. The first time I didn't recognize a place we'd been together, he pretended it didn't matter. The first time I forgot the ending of a story he told me the day before, he told it again, word for word. The first time I woke up from a nap and needed 2 whole seconds to remember who he was. He smiled anyway. But that night, while I pretended to sleep, I heard him in the kitchen. Not crying. Just breathing, uneven, controlled, like a man trying to survive quietly. That was the moment I realized something worse than losing myself. I was slowly taking him with me. And neither of us knew how to stop it. Ryan didn't change all at once. At first, he just started listening harder. The kind of listening where a person watches not only your words, but the spaces between them, measuring pauses, memorizing rhythms, tracking every hesitation like it might be a warning sign. He began finishing my sentences. Not playfully. Carefully. I would stop mid-thought and he'd gently supply the word, his voice soft, almost apologetic, like he was returning something I had dropped. You mean appointment? You're thinking about your sister. You already told me this story, but I want to hear it again. He never corrected me. Never said I forgot. But I saw the way he cataloged everything. Then came the notebooks. At first I thought they were for work, sketches of furniture designs, measurements, plans. Ryan always worked with his hands. Creating order from raw materials was how he understood the world. But one evening I woke up on the couch and saw him at the dining table surrounded by pages. Not blueprints. Me. He'd written timelines of my days. 8:15, coffee, 2 sugars. 10:40, confusion with keys. 2:05, headache. 7:30, didn't recognize restaurant name but recognized booth. He noticed me watching. For a moment he froze, like a child caught doing something fragile. I'm just helping track patterns, he said. My chest tightened. Ryan, you don't have to manage me. His expression didn't change, and that scared me more than sadness would have. I'm not managing you, he said quietly. I'm staying ahead of what's trying to take you. Sleep stopped coming easily for him. I'd wake in the middle of the night and feel his side of the bed empty. I'd find him sitting on the porch, elbows on knees, staring into the dark like he expected answers to eventually step out of it. Come back to bed, I'd whisper. In a minute. But the minutes stretched longer every night. He started drinking his coffee black, no sugar anymore. Started forgetting to eat unless I reminded him. The steady, warm man I met in a parking lot now moved with a constant alertness, like a guard on duty. One afternoon I caught him watching me while I read. Not lovingly. Desperately. What? I asked. He hesitated. You reread the same paragraph 6 times. I looked down at the page. I had. And I hadn't noticed. Something inside me folded inward. You can't fix this. His jaw tightened. You don't know that. I'm disappearing, Ryan. No, he said, calm, absolute. You're being taken. That's different. Days later I forgot the route home from the grocery store. Not lost, just blank. The streets felt rearranged, unfamiliar. I pulled over, breathing hard, until his truck appeared behind me. He must have followed when I took too long. He got out, opened my door, crouched beside me. You called me but didn't say anything, he said gently. I knew your number, I whispered. I just didn't know where I was. His hand trembled as he brushed hair from my face. You found me, he said. I shook my head weakly. No, you found me. Something broke behind his eyes then, not loudly, but permanently. I could see it settle into him, a decision forming where fear used to live. That night he packed a bag with medical papers, medications, copies of every scan. "Ryan, what are you doing?" "Not waiting," he replied. "For what?" "For them to tell us there's nothing left to try." His voice wasn't frantic. It was steady. And that was worse. Because I realized the quiet truth. He wasn't fighting the illness anymore. He was fighting time itself. And Ryan Cole had decided he would rather lose himself than lose me. Ryan stopped believing in maybe. Doctors loved that word. Maybe autoimmune. Maybe degenerative. Maybe it stabilizes. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe was a polite way to surrender slowly, and Ryan had never been the kind of man who surrendered to things he didn't understand. So he started asking questions they didn't expect. The kind you only ask when you've memorized every answer already given. I noticed the shift during an appointment with a neurologist downtown. The doctor spoke gently, professionally, explaining inflammation markers, treatment trials, patients. Ryan didn't interrupt. He waited. Then he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printed timelines, medication reactions, symptom patterns, and one highlighted detail repeating every 3 weeks. Headache. Disorientation. Memory gaps. Fatigue spike. Always 3 weeks apart. The doctor frowned. Neurological conditions don't follow exact cycles. Ryan's voice was calm. Then this isn't behaving like one. The room grew still. On the drive home he barely spoke. "Ryan," I said carefully, "you're scaring me." "I'm scaring myself," he admitted quietly. Because things that look random shouldn't form patterns. Coincidences exist. He shook his head. Not this precise. I watched streetlights move across his face, determination replacing exhaustion. For the first time since this began, his fear had direction. Days later he asked me something strange. "Claire, before all this started, did anything change? Food, environment, medication, routine?" I thought hard. Nothing. Then something flickered. "There was a wellness clinic near the school," I said slowly. "Teachers got free stress treatments. Vitamins, 4 drips, that kind of thing. I only went a few times." He gripped the steering wheel. "When?" I gave the dates. They matched the first symptoms. The clinic looked harmless. Soft music. Pale walls. Smiling receptionist who spoke in rehearsed reassurance. Ryan did most of the talking. "What exactly was administered?" he asked. "Standard nutrient therapy," the woman replied smoothly. "Very safe." "List the compounds." She hesitated, just long enough. Ryan saw it. We left without arguing. But that night, his laptop stayed open until sunrise. 2 days later he returned with a name. An experimental compound, part of an unapproved cognitive trial quietly shut down months earlier after adverse neurological reactions. My visits overlapped with their final test period. My hands shook. "You're saying they..." "I'm saying," he interrupted gently, trying to stay steady for me, "someone used patients who trusted them." The air felt thinner. "This isn't an illness," I whispered. His eyes burned, not with panic, but purpose. "No," he said. "Something was taken from you." The next morning he filed reports, contacted attorneys, demanded records they resisted giving. For the first time since I began fading, I saw anger replace helplessness inside him. Not reckless anger. Protective anger. The kind born from love that refuses to accept injustice. I held his hand that evening, studying the man I loved, the softness still there, but now sharpened by resolve. What if it's too late? I asked. He pressed his forehead to mine. Then I'll spend whatever time exists making sure they never do this to anyone again. His voice trembled, just slightly. But I don't believe it's too late, he added. Not for you. And in that moment, hope returned, fragile, trembling, but alive. Ryan used to build tables. Solid oak, smooth edges, the kind meant to last decades. He believed furniture should outlive the hands that made it. That was how he understood love back then, steady, patient, shaped slowly over time. But love changes when time is no longer promised. Now he built cases. Folders filled the apartment, legal documents, medical correspondence, research papers highlighted in 3 different colors. Our dining table disappeared under evidence. Our living room became a quiet war room lit by a desk lamp that never turned off. And Ryan stopped sleeping. I would wake in the night and see him reading medical journals aloud under his breath, repeating terminology until it sounded like a language he could command. Neurotoxicity thresholds. Inflammatory cascade. Reversal protocols. He wasn't a doctor. He just refused to remain a man waiting beside a hospital bed. The investigation gained weight. Lawyers called. Former patients came forward, not all as severe as me, but similar symptoms, dismissed as anxiety. The clinic closed, temporarily. The receptionist stopped answering. The company behind it issued statements without explanations. Ryan never celebrated any of it. Victory meant nothing if I kept fading. I had begun losing days. Sometimes mornings vanished before I understood they existed. I started recording messages to myself on my phone, small anchors in time. Hi Claire. Today is Thursday. Ryan made pancakes. You cried but didn't know why. You still love him. I watched one recording beside him. My own voice felt like someone reaching toward me from underwater. Ryan paused it gently halfway through. You don't have to keep proving it, he said softly. I do, I whispered. Because one day I might watch and feel nothing. He swallowed, jaw tight. Then I'll feel it for both of us. He changed physically too. The warmth people trusted was still there, but it lived behind something harder now. He moved with intention, spoke carefully, as if every action cost energy he refused to waste. Friends stopped inviting him out. Work orders went unfinished. His workshop gathered dust. I found him there one afternoon, staring at a half-built table. You missed this, I said. He ran a hand across the wood. This used to be my future. And now? He looked at me, not broken, not hopeless. Focused. Now my future is however long I can keep you in it. A specialist finally reviewed the case files Ryan compiled. Not out of obligation, out of respect. He'd done the work no one else had time to do. There was a treatment possibility. Experimental. Risky. No guarantee of recovery, only a chance to stop progression. I was afraid. Ryan wasn't. But that didn't mean he was fearless, only that fear no longer decided anything. The night before the procedure I asked him, if I don't come back the same, will you still be here? His eyes softened, the old Ryan shining through the man forged by survival. I already promised, he said. I don't love the version of you that remembers me. He took my hand, steady despite the tremor I could feel beneath his skin. I love the you that exists. Any version. Any fragment. Love had changed him. Not into someone colder. Into someone who could walk through terror and keep moving anyway. And looking at him, I realized the cost. He had traded the life he planned for the life that might save mine. And he never once asked if it was worth it. I remember light before I remember sound. White ceiling. Soft beeping. The distant smell of antiseptic and rain on pavement drifting through an open hospital window. For a moment, the world felt blank, not frightening, not peaceful, just unfinished. Then I felt a hand around mine. Warm. Familiar in a way deeper than memory. I turned my head. Ryan was asleep in the chair beside the bed, forehead resting near our joined hands, like he had been afraid to loosen his grip even while unconscious. His beard had grown uneven, his eyes shadowed with weeks of exhaustion, but he looked calmer than I'd seen him in months. I studied his face carefully. Waiting. Not for recognition, for feeling. And slowly, gently, it came. Not all at once. Not like flipping a switch. More like dawn creeping into a room that forgot the sun existed. My chest tightened. Ryan, I whispered. His eyes opened instantly. For a second he didn't move, didn't breathe, like hope itself was fragile and any sudden motion might break it. Claire. There are moments in life where language fails because emotion arrives first. I couldn't explain what I remembered, or what was still missing. There were gaps, blurred days, incomplete conversations, but the core remained. Him. I know you, I said softly. The breath he released trembled. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to my hand, and I felt something wet against my skin. Not loud sobbing. Just relief finally allowed to exist. Recovery wasn't a miracle. Some memories never returned. Certain names stayed lost. I still kept notes sometimes, not out of fear anymore, but acceptance of what had changed. Healing, I learned, doesn't restore the past. It teaches you how to live beside its absence. Ryan understood that before I did. We went home weeks later. The apartment looked smaller somehow, as if time had passed through it differently than through us. The folders were gone. The papers filed away. The table visible again. But he was different. Softer in voice, heavier in silence. I found him one evening standing in the doorway, watching me cook like it was a fragile privilege. What? I smiled. Nothing, he said quietly. Just memorizing. I walked over, placing his hand against my cheek. You don't have to be afraid anymore. He shook his head gently. It's not fear. Then what? He hesitated, then spoke with the honesty that had always defined him. When you almost disappear, he said, you learn love isn't permanent. It's something you keep choosing, knowing it can hurt again. I rested my forehead against his. And you'd still choose it? His answer came without pause. Every time. Months later, we visited the river overlook where we once spent summer nights talking about futures we couldn't imagine. The sky burned gold over the water. I couldn't remember every conversation we had there, but I remembered how it felt to sit beside him. And somehow, that mattered more. Do you ever wish none of it happened? I asked. He thought for a long moment. No, he said softly. Because I learned what love actually is. Which is? He intertwined his fingers with mine. Not the promise that nothing will break, he replied. The promise that when it does, you stay. The wind moved gently around us, carrying the quiet weight of everything we survived and everything we lost. I leaned into him, heart steady. Love hadn't spared us pain. It had walked with us through it. And I finally understood. The most beautiful love stories aren't the ones where no one gets hurt. They're the ones where someone stays anyway.
Subscribe, like, and tell people about this love.